investments.
Millions of European Union citizens currently living in the United Kingdom have until June 2021 to apply for so-called settled status in the UK. But there are concerns about how the scheme is working and will work, and what would happen in the case of a no-deal Brexit. Well, joining me now are Stuart McDonald, he's the Scottish National Party's spokesperson on immigration, and Zoe Gardner, policy advisor at the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants. Welcome to you. Now, both the European Union and the UK government have said that they appreciate the human concern here and that they've put in place measures, come what may, to deal with this issue of people currently living in the UK, if they're EU citizens or vice versa. Now, how is that working?
Well, so far, it looks like the government's put into place a scheme that should work for the vast majority of EU migrants here in the UK. I mean, they're mainly young, they're mainly highly educated, they have access to technology, and for most people, should be fine. They have developed a straightforward scheme and it should work out. What we're concerned about are the people who will fall through the gaps, the people who cannot so easily evidence 5 years continuous residence here in the UK. And those will be the most vulnerable people, people who are homeless or in unstable housing situations, victims of trafficking, victims of domestic violence, who have to rely on their potentially abusive partners to get hold of documentation. Those kind of people are going to be the ones to fall through the gaps. And because it's such a vast number of people, we're talking about the biggest immigration documentation initiative that this country's probably ever seen.
And there was a change. There was going to be a charge.
There was going to be a
complicated form, and both of those have been dropped.
And they've rolled back on that. But what we're concerned about is that they're going to have to roll back again because they're going to reach the end of this arbitrary deadline that they've set up, cut off cliff edge, where anybody who hasn't registered by that point sort of falls down a black hole and loses status. And what they're going to have to do, because they won't be able to show that they've registered everybody as they promised they would, so they're going to have to roll back again. And what they should do is, from the start, have a declaratory system that just gives everybody status, and then they can register, not apply.
Now, Stuart McDonald, you're also, of course, a constituency MP. I mean, what's your experience of how the system's working so far?
Well, we're obviously at a pretty early stage. We've just had a couple of test runs, essentially, so far. So one or two constituents have been in touch. They've had difficulties themselves, and you only need to look at Twitter to see some of the problems that people have had. People who have been here 6, 7, 8 years and have been problems getting the phone to recognise an ID document or to upload documents that they need to send. So difficulties there. And the key point that Zoe makes is that, you know, you're talking about a huge undertaking here, best part of 4 million people. So even if the Home Office does pull out all the stops successfully, achieves 80–90%, you are still talking about hundreds of thousands of people who could potentially miss out here. And what the Home Office hasn't done is remotely engage in what happens to these people who accidentally miss out.
I mean, you were talking about people in vulnerable people in difficult situations, people who've been trafficked or whatever, victims of spousal abuse or something like that. I mean, one argument might be they'd be better off going home.
I don't know that that's really a realistic way of approaching a system that will just cut them off without any rights. Maybe, perhaps, arguably, if they had the support they needed, then, you know, being at home, or what is now their home, staying here, that's sort of neither here nor there. What we shouldn't be doing is creating an arbitrary cliff edge, after which they will have no more right in the UK, and they will be subject to the hostile environment. And we've seen how that works on the Windrush scandal that happened. As Stuart said, we're talking about potentially much bigger numbers here. It could dwarf the Windrush scandal. We're talking about a lot of people who'll be in a really bad situation.
And we are already seeing reports in the media, including on Sky News, of old ladies who came here from Germany 50 years ago who worried that they're going to get deported and all that. Now, under the rules, that shouldn't happen, should it?
It shouldn't happen, but there will be also, I mean, it's a complicated issue as well for people to understand. So there will be folk who think they're British, perhaps were born here, but they aren't actually British and they're required to register because they're still EU nationals. There can be folk who maybe did get a permanent resident document under the previous scheme who don't think they need to register, so they make that mistake as well. So, you know, there are all sorts of situations where this could cause problems. There was a survey that the BMA did recently, I think, and it indicated that something like a third of doctors here, EU national doctors, weren't aware of the scheme or even the requirement to register. So you're talking about folk that, for all different reasons, going to have difficulties here. So, you know, my solution to this would, I think, as Zoe says, get rid of that deadline, or even better, just continue with free movement altogether.
And of course, this only applies to people who are here now. I mean, what happens if we do leave with or without a deal on the 29th of March, what happens to people in future, French people who maybe want to come here, or Spanish people?
Well, again, so what I was saying before about how it's a straightforward system, yeah, more or less, but then it starts to get complicated when that kind of thing happens. So if we leave with a deal, then there's still, for people who arrive for the first 2 years, so within the implementation period, then they will still be able to apply for pre-settled status, which is a different status that they'll then have to reapply to turn that into settled status 5 years on. If we leave without a deal, then people who arrive will not be eligible to apply, but they'll have a different status entirely, and the government plans to introduce a whole new immigration sort of pathway where they could stay for 3 years. And this is just not something that the Home Office is administratively capable of putting in place.
And that means less immigration to Scotland, which you want.
Yeah, well, it would be a disaster for Scotland. And I mean, even the government's white paper about the future immigration system acknowledges that it's going to cause a massive financial hit for businesses, for public finances, and in Scotland it's going to be terrible for our demographics as well. OK,
thank you both very much indeed. That's All Out Politics for today. Please join us tomorrow. Coming up on Sky News, more on Liam Fox's Swiss trade deal.